Hey everybody, welcome to the comic preview stream here for Fantasy Books and Games.
Yay.
My name is Aaron.
I'm Celeste.
Yeah, and we are super excited to talk about some new comic books. Let's just jump right into it.
Yeah.
Well, let me just, I like barely know what I'm doing. We've been doing this for a few weeks now without Dan's help, and
it's going great.
yeah, it's going awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I lost track of the comic cam. Dan, what are you doing to me?
Main cam? Is that
Oh
not
yeah, there we go. Nope,
That's
just turned it off.
I'm gonna. Damn!
Oh my goodness. But look at this. Yeah, we're just having a good time here.
Yeah.
We're having a good time. We just like to have fun.
Should I go get him?
Yeah, go get Dan and solve our dilemma. It says Comic Cam.
Dan! Is Dan up here?
You're fibbing me right now, Dan. It does not say Comic Cam.
Hey, where's Dan?
Yeah, I know. This is funny that Dan is commenting in the chat, trying to troubleshoot. Down. Oh, there it is. Downward. Okay. Yeah, downward. Thanks, Dan. Thanks for changing it on me. And
Cool beans.
thank you. All right, we got it. So Celeste will join me. She'll be back here soon. But in the bathroom. Dan, what are you doing in the bathroom? I always like to start with some facsimiles, and there are 2 facsimiles coming out tomorrow. Welcome back. We got it figured out.
Yay.
Yay.
I hoped you would. I couldn't find them.
So I don't remember, Celeste, you've been doing the show for a few weeks now, and I always like to talk about facsimiles. I am really, really happy that Marvel is reprinting the 1985, 8 issues of Amazing Spider-Man from 1985. And they're reprinting the specific issues where Spider-Man had the alien symbiote costume that eventually goes on to become Venom. And they're good comics, and I just think it's neat that they're reprinting the whole run, essentially, as it were, before he decides to get rid of the symbiote because it's an alien. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
You said all 8 issues. Which one is this?
So this is issue number 255. The series, he got the alien costume in 252, and then I think it's 260 is when he gets rid of the alien costume. That's when he realizes that it is an alien symbiote that's gonna permanently bond to him, and so that's why he gets rid of it. And then that's 260. So then 40 issues later in Amazing Spider-Man 300, that's when Venom shows up.
Oh, okay.
So it's actually a long time, several years before you get from the alien symbiote to Venom.
Wow.
But it's it's just neat. I like comic book history, and I like Spider-Man, so it's just I don't have to look through back issue bins to find these issues. I'm glad that Marvel is just reprinting them, and so I can just buy them here. I don't have to go anywhere. They're just right there. Also, another facsimile that you see, I think DC, they've gotten word of what Marvel is doing with their facsimiles, because like I said, Marvel is reprinting all of the symbiote Spider-Man issues of Amazing Spider-Man, and Marvel is also reprinting Secret Wars. We've been talking about that every week that a new issue of Secret Wars comes out. That's where Celeste, that's where the alien symbiote actually first shows up, is in the series Secret Wars. That's where Spider-Man gets the black costume.
Okay.
And so they're putting that out monthly. And so I think DC kind of caught wind that Marvel is doing this 40-year anniversary reprint of Secret Wars. So DC is going to reprint their 1985 epic crossover, Crisis of Infinite Earths, which I guess it's technically a 39th year anniversary, not a 40th anniversary. But this is a pretty big deal. This is the comic book series that pretty much cemented the idea of the company-wide crossover that sets up the new status quo. Marvel and DC have pretty much been doing this every summer now, but this is the first time it happened was in 1985 with Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I've actually never never actually read this series. I was always more of a Marvel reader, and DC's continuity just didn't interest me that much.
Well, are you going to? Now that it's
I'm
being
I'm
reprinted?
absolutely going to read it, and I'm actually kind of excited to now because as I've gotten older and appreciate comic book history more, I've become more of a fan of DC Comics than Marvel, and so I'm actually a little excited to finally get around to reading this. Like, I mean, it's only like it's been in print forever as like collected editions, but
Yeah.
I like reading issues, so I guess I'm just all in. I'm just gonna buy all 12 of these. This is a big deal because back in the '80s, DC's continuity was confusing, and I think part of the reason that Marvel was outselling DC. So, see, Celeste, I don't know if
It was confusing.
I
'Cause
don't.
It still
Well, it hasn't.
Marvel too.
Yeah, well, Marvel's gotten way worse, but I don't know if you actually want the full history.
Yeah, why not?
But basically, DC was always the top seller of comic books for like pretty much from the beginning of comic
Yeah.
books. Marvel was about to go out of business in 1961 because they were selling so poorly, and then Jack Kirby and
Wow.
Stan Lee created the Fantastic Four, and then after that, Steve Ditko and Stan Lee created Amazing Spider-Man, and then the X-Men, and then the Hulk, and it just blew up. And
See, I know all of those really kicked it off. I didn't know they were gonna shut down before that.
yeah,
Wow.
like before that, they were just making romance comics and monster comics, like just because they were
Random.
like sales were
Yeah.
just not good. Superheroes hadn't actually been selling that well since the 40s. Superman basically and Batman, they sold enough just because they were so super popular. But then there was kind of a superhero boom in the late 50s, and Flash and Green Lantern and all these DC characters started getting popular. And Justice League was like a huge thing for DC. So anyway, for the longest time, DC was outselling Marvel, but then something happened. Marvel just kept making really good comics throughout the 60s and the 70s. Marvel started getting popular, and by the 80s, Marvel's outselling DC. And that was just considered unheard of, like at the time, because DC has Superman and Batman, the most popular characters of all time. How can anybody outsell them? And
because Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, you say that now, but yeah. But Marv Wolfman, one of his, he thought part of it was just because Marvel had a cohesive continuity where you could just follow all of the stories, and DC's comics were all over the place. Like they all took place in like alternate Earths. You had multiple like continuities, and it was considered. Was that somebody Naruto running behind us?
Yeah.
DC's comic continuity was considered unwieldy. Like there was just you couldn't follow the DC universe the way you could follow the Marvel universe. And Marvel had a thing, they were called Marvel Zombies, that just they bought every Marvel book so that they could follow the entire continuity of the Marvel universe. You couldn't do that with DC. There was just too much. So with Crisis on Infinite Earths, the idea was they were going to finally condense it all into one single universe, like of a continuity. So this story is an epic story because it literally takes place across multiple
I like
realities.
How 70s this page looks. Something about it.
This is drawn by George Perez, and this is considered one of his like epic, like his seminal works. And yeah, he's a really, really good artist. He's somebody that I, as a kid, probably never really appreciated because I considered him like I saw him as being kind of an old-fashioned artist, but his pages are so dense. Like there's so much going on in it, and I kind of get it now. Like that's what makes it feel really epic because it's a really dense story and really good storytelling just across the board. So I'm, like I said, I'm very, very excited to actually read through the entire Crisis on Infinite Earth series for the first time.
One issue spectacular, but then there's like 10?
It's first issue spectacular. 12-part maxi series. This is the first issue. I'm not entirely sure that you can, but you know, that's okay. So
I just like looking at the pretty pictures.
I mean, that's at least like 75% of comic book reading is looking at the pictures. But yeah, so I always start with the facsimiles. Got those out of the way. Before I move on to anything else, like what's something that you read this week that you're excited about, Celeste?
Moon Man, because I like looking at the pictures. There is reading in this, but I do really like the art style. And basically, man goes up to moon, man gets powers. Man wants to become superhero on But yeah, so if you skip to the later pages, that's yeah,
Oh,
you
look at
can
that.
see all the action. Look, there's like barely any words.
Shoom.
That's
Yeah.
what I like about it. But no, it's so bright and colorful, and I really like how he's sort of becoming this vigilante of sorts.
Keep talking.
Hi,
Mhm.
Dan.
Hi. Don't
Um,
mind me.
I never do.
but yeah,
Yeah, we
it's a
talked
good
about
one.
this first issue. Uh, we talked about the first issue when it came out. But I haven't read. Is this issue 2?
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's why I haven't read issue 2 yet, because it hasn't come out until
It
now.
just came out, so yeah, really easy if you want to get caught up.
Hmm. Yeah, it's this is written by Kid Cudi, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't
Are
know
you-
exactly how to pronounce your name, but
I-
Kid Cudi.
I like saying Cutie, like Kid Cutie.
Yeah.
That's the nickname for my cats.
Aw.
Are you a big fan of Kid Cudi?
I don't really know who he is, but I like this comic.
Well, that's good. I'm glad you like the comic.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dan.
Maybe
Tech
brighter.
support. I know. Big hand for Dan, everybody. He's fixing our tech support on the fly. But yeah, like I said, I haven't read issue 2, but you like it? It's good.
Yeah,
It's like
I'm
a
liking it so
superhero
far.
thing, kind of.
Yeah, so he works for this company that's very controversial, but it's what allowed him to be an astronaut and go onto the moon and everything, which in issue 1, it's explained how it blacks out for a bit and nobody knows what went on up there. Even us as the readers don't know yet, other than he got superpowers, but it kept doing these weird, interesting flashbacks to it. So I'm excited to read more about it. But he sort of becomes this vigilante because he works for this company, and on air and on TV, he's like, yeah, a company's great, because he has to say that, but then...
That's the company line.
Yeah, but then he's like, nah, that
I do like
sucks."
this art. I like the colors. It's very
Right?
vibrant.
Something about it, man. Draws me in.
Yeah. No, that's really neat.
Yeah. There's a couple lines in it, too, that made me laugh. Anything that makes me actually laugh out loud, I'm like, okay, it's a good comic.
Well, good.
Yeah, graphic design really matters. It's 90% of the reason why I will drop comics is if the art is just terrible and like, okay, never mind.
Yeah, I
Like, not
completely
terrible,
agree.
but just not to my taste, I should say.
Yeah, but like legibility is so important. Like I actually, there was a comic that came out this week by an artist that I like, but we're not going to talk about it because like I can't actually read the comics because it's just like really impenetrable. It's difficult to follow the story.
Mhm.
Like the art looks really nice as art, but it doesn't make sense trying to read it.
Do I
like,
know the one you're
follow
talking
story.
about?
No, you don't.
Oh.
You trust me. This is like beyond anybody. It's not a comic anybody knows. But yeah, like so.
Yeah.
Speaking of comics that I am super excited about, you guys know I've been loving the G.I. Joe comics, and this Cobra Commander issue is just continuing. It is just so
Wait, Cobra
awesome.
Commander is G.I. Joe?
Yes, Cobra
Oh.
Commander. Cobra. Celeste.
What?
Cobra Commander is the main villain in G.I. Joe, yes. So G.I. Joe is America's elite special forces, and they fight the terrorist group Cobra, led
Uh-huh.
by
Uh-huh.
Cobra Commander.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh my
I
gosh.
never would have guessed.
Yeah,
And I
are
mean
you-
that genuinely. I never
Are you
would
funning
have
me?
guessed.
Are you putting me on?
I don't know G.I. Joe.
That's okay. That's okay. You're a Zoomer. You're not. You don't have to know
Wow.
G.I. Look,
Wow.
if you're not from the '80s, you're not gonna know G.I. Joe. It's fine. I know somebody's goofing off in the background. But I really just love this series. I like Cobra Commander a lot. I mean, this specific story because the Dreadnoks are a huge part of it, and I always really loved the Dreadnoks. They're basically like white trash Floridians that are like a biker gang, and they dress like clowns, and they're violent and hardcore. And yeah, this series though has just been flying. The pacing of it is just relentless. But also, I think what I didn't expect to happen in this series is that the character of Cobra Commander comes off really, really strong. Like in the cartoon, it was obviously very much like a joke. Like I know you probably never watched a lot of '80s cartoons, Celeste, but the villains were always kind of like a laughing stock. They were incompetent and stupid,
Yeah.
and that's what makes it funny. And in this comic, though, Cobra Commander is kind of ruthless and really like cold and calculating.
Mhm.
I really, really, it's a really good portrayal of the character. I know Dan is trying to make me crack while I gush over GI Joe, and it's not gonna work, Dan.
That one was Brandon.
Oh my goodness.
I'm cracking.
You're cracking?
You're making me crack.
Okay. Well, anyway, if you guys have all heard me gush about the GI Joe comics for a long time now, I absolutely love these GI Joe comics. Transformers.
I like the color palette in there.
It's really
like it all
is
felt
really
very cohesive, page to page.
Yeah, it does have a lot of bright colors, which again I think it plays perfectly into the toy aspect. Like they were all these designs were made for toys, so they're really colorful and unique. Like everything's supposed to look unique so that you can sell a different toy for everything.
Yeah.
But yeah,
which I appreciate. Sometimes it's hard to distinguish characters between each other in comics. I'm like, wait, who is this? Who's that? Like, there's so many characters in between. Like, reading 10 to 20 different comics at a time, it becomes a lot. So,
yeah. That's what makes something like GI Joe and Transformers and like all of those properties. I think that's what makes them. That's part of the appeal. Is like all the characters just have this unique look to them by design. Like they have to look like a unique thing.
Bumblebee, most recognizable Transformer, and I stand by that.
Optimus
bright
Prime.
Yellow. No.
Everybody knows Optimus Prime.
Everyone knows Bumblebee.
I mean, maybe. I'm not going to disagree. Bumblebee is pretty widely known and very recognizable. But I like Bumblebee more when he was a little VW bug and not the movie Corvette or whatever he was. I don't know.
No, it's the little buggy. I want a little buggy one day.
Yeah, he's a little VW bug.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna blast through a couple of other books in my reading pile.
Yeah, you got a lot.
I have a lot. I haven't read all of them though, but you guys know, like this was it. So there's a few choice books that came out this week, but there was a lot of the stuff that's in my regular pull. So like Blue Book, 1947. This book, I've been enjoying the heck out of this. I really like this. Have we talked about this one on the stream when you were here, Celeste?
I don't think so. Why is it called Blue Book?
So Blue Book was the name of a book that was published that detailed the real life alien abduction stories of the 60s. And so
allegedly?
Well, it's the real people who made these claims. Yeah, so there's real people that exist that have claimed to be abducted by aliens, and they all have weird stories, and a lot of it has stuff that can't be corroborated or proven, and so it's similar to like paranormal or like ghost stories, like people that say they like have seen ghosts, and it kind of takes on this like weird culture where
so they made a comic book out of these people's stories.
Yes, what this is it's written by James Tynion and it's drawn by Michael Avon Oeming, and this is basically them just. It's not an adaptation of Blue Book. Like Blue Book, I actually don't know specifically. I don't remember specifically what it was. If it was just it was a published book or just something that became like a slang term for it. But basically, so they did a first series that was about alien abductions, and this series, 1947, this one is about UFO sightings specifically. So
Wait, is each issue a different story?
So each issue, no, it's telling them each issue is telling the ongoing story of like the first major event. So the first series told the first couple, like the first widely publicized couple that claimed to have been abducted by aliens, and this series is telling of the first pilot that claimed to have seen a UFO while he was flying.
Ooh.
But each issue does also contain a backup story that's just like weird urban legends or just like odd stories that have like been published or claimed to have happened.
Is it always about aliens or like Mothman?
No, yeah, like it's the backup stories are like Mothman type stuff or like
any other cryptid.
Some of it's cryptids, some of it is just like weird, like somebody spontaneously combusted, things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a really good book. I highly recommend it if you like nonfiction because that's what it is. It's really, but it's like interesting nonfiction because like I don't, whenever I read or hear stories about alien abduction or like ghost sightings and stuff, I'm like the biggest skeptic on the planet. But at the same time,
fun.
like it is fun.
Yeah.
It like takes on like there's this weird level of like play fantasy to it where it's like I don't think it's true, but if it was, it's fun to like think about it if it was. I don't know. difficult for me to describe.
I watched like BuzzFeed Unsolved, so I feel like I would like this.
Yes, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Well, then you should definitely check out Blue Book. I think you would like it. Another book that I've been gushing about, Army of Darkness Forever. This is absolutely the best Army of Darkness / Evil Dead comic that's ever been made.
Is that a baby?
That's a little demon baby, yes.
Why does he look like that?
Because he's a little demon baby. That's why.
He's just built different.
Right, exactly. This I've talked about this book every week it comes out. This is definitely my favorite sequel to Army of Darkness. It does a great job of merging the two alternate endings. So I really don't, Celeste, I don't have time to explain the entire history of Sam Raimi's franchise, Evil Dead. But Army of Darkness was released with a theatrical ending, and then there was an alternate ending, which they wanted to be the real ending, but the studio or the distributor, I don't know, it ended up not getting used. And so there's like two very different endings for the movie that exist out there.
Okay.
And this comic book series manages to like merge the two of them into an actual sequel that uses both endings. It's a very impressive feat. It's written by Tony Fleecs, who is a guy that I am quickly becoming a huge fan of. He wrote the book that we talked about last week, the Uncanny Valley comic.
Oh yeah.
That's him. He writes the Stray Dogs and the Feral comic series. Or yeah, I think I don't remember if he writes or draws those also. He's also an artist. And he also works on one of my other favorite comic book series, Local Man. So this dude is just on fire. So yeah, he's like hitting all the
stacked resume.
Really, yeah. But yeah, so that's really good. Let's see, what else do you got for me, Celeste? Let's talk about something that you like. Displaced. Hey,
yeah.
I read. Is this issue 3?
Yes.
Oh man, I'm so far behind. I read issue 1, and I really, really liked it.
Right? See, I liked it too. So it's not just the classic city disappears and gets swallowed up or whatever, erased, because all of the survivors, they also are erased from people's memories.
Yeah, it's like they never existed.
Yeah, pretty much. And so if they split off even by themselves, they'll disappear, like straight up just they're gone. So it's really interesting. I'm enjoying it so far. I'm very curious about the old guy's story, because he knows that it was going to happen before it happened.
This guy here,
yeah,
like
he
he's
came
like
up
the
and tried to
old,
warn everybody.
the old crazy guy. Yeah, in the first issue, he's the one that knows something is going on, and everybody's just like, "Oh, you crazy old homeless guy."
Yeah, and he's like, "No, I swear." But it's getting really interesting. I like to see the dynamic of this group unfolding and taking different paths on how they're gonna survive. But yeah.
I need to read it. The first issue was very strong, and it had a good.
You're not that far behind.
No, I know. I don't know if you're aware of this list, but I read a lot of comic books, and so it's very difficult for me to prioritize. And like the problem is, like, I didn't read issue 2 the day that it came out, and then once I was a week behind, it immediately got pushed back because now I'm reading books for the next week, and then the next week, and the next week. But yeah, I'm glad that you're liking it, because it's a really good book. I
highly recommend it.
Yeah, good.
It's interesting. It's one of those mysteries. If you like mysteries,
it does have a good mystery to it. Let's see. There was something. Oh, you know what? It kind of made me think of this book that I haven't had a chance to talk about, because similarly, referring to like getting behind, I missed the first issue when it came out, and then I read issue 2, but I didn't talk about it on the stream. And so finally we're getting a chance to talk about Under Heist. This is actually by one of my favorite creators, David Lapham, and his wife, I think it's his wife, Maria. But this is such a weird... David Lapham writes and draws really great crime comics, just like awesome crime stuff. And this is like a weird supernatural, like psychological horror crime comic.
Is that blood on the walls?
Yeah. So this is issue 3. There was a heist. It's called Under Heist. There was a heist that happened in a subway tunnel, and this character got away with it. He like double crossed. It was a whole thing. We're 3 issues in, but like there was a crew that was robbing a bank, and then they robbed the bank robbers, and so now he's got like these other criminals like looking for him because they know he's got the money.
I mean, is it really so bad if you rob robbers?
Well, I mean,
like morally, I think you have the higher ground.
I think I heard somewhere, Celeste, that 2 wrongs don't make a right.
I think it kind of
balances the scale just a little
Yeah.
bit.
like a hitman who only hits hitmen.
Or like Dexter, a serial killer that only kills bad people.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
I agree with that logic.
Okay, I don't want to watch out for you. But anyway, I really like this book because it's so much. It starts off pretty straightforward, like, oh, it's just this heist thing, but
Yeah.
then it gets really weird and surreal, where like the storytelling it bounces around between scenes where you don't know what's real and what's a dream or like
Ooh,
what's
I
a
love that.
hallucination that he's having, and like he keeps meeting characters and they kind of talk in riddles sometimes, and but it's like it's really really good. I really like this book, even for as like I'm a big David Lapham fan, but this is,
Oh my god.
oh yeah, that's a girl that got some kind of demon symbol
Ugh.
sketched into her, cut into her. But yeah, this is a great book. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend checking it out. David Lapham has definitely got a lot of his fans, so I'm sure people are aware of it. But definitely give it a look if you want something a little different, a little weird, a little dark. Yeah, excellent book.
Nice.
All right, let's talk about something a little bit more straightforward, and that is Superman. I like Superman. That DC has just been killing it with their Superman books. I don't. This is a crossover that started, I think, last week. We talked about Action Comics started the House of Brainiac story, and it's written by Joshua Williamson, who's been writing Superman for a year now, and it's just really, really good. And I love that Lobo is in this. I think we talked about Lobo at one point.
Yeah.
He's the main
his name
man.
is funny.
Yeah, and what I like, it goes pretty much how I expected. Like Lobo's been an enemy of Superman for a long time because
Green Lantern in this?
it like crosses over with Green Lantern a little bit.
Oh.
Green Lantern's not in this, but the Lantern Corps is.
Okay.
But I like that Lobo's like this weird bounty hunter who's like a violent psychopath, but he has a code of honor. Like he has his rules. So if he gives you his word, he'll agree to it. And so Brainiac has somehow magically gotten an army of Zarnians who are Lobo's race. So Brainiac has this army of Zarnians, and that doesn't sit right with Lobo because he's
oh my god.
Yeah, Lobo's whole thing is that he killed his entire planet of people so that he could be the only Zarnian. So that he could be the last living Zarnian.
Yeah,
And
that don't sit with.
So
right
now
with
that
me.
this like army shows up, so Lobo agrees to help Superman, even though he really just wants to kill Superman. I don't know, it's fun and stupid, and I kind of love it. Say Army of Zarnia 5 times. Army of Zarnian, Army of Zarnian, Army of Zarnian. How many was that? Only 3? Oh well, that's all you get.
Yeah, I can't do it. I'm losing it on 2.
Well, and it's even weirder because like I'm saying Zarnian, but it's actually spelled CZN or no CZAN R. I don't know. It's spelled weird. It's a comic book.
That's one of those words where in my head, as I'm reading it, I would just gloss over it.
Right. You're just like blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
It is hard. Yeah, right. Batman, Superman, World's Finest, 26 comes out. Man, I can't believe Mark Waid has been writing this book for 2 years, and it's really really good. Yes, so this issue has Batmite and Mr. Mixie Pitlick in it.
Oh my god! Wait, what's his name again?
Mr. Mixie Pitlick.
Mr.
Pop quiz.
Mixie
How do you spell Mr. Mixie Pitlick?
M-R. I already forgot his
You
name.
already messed it up. It's MXYZ. Oh wait, I guess I should have it.
I'm sorry.
MXYZPTLK. Mr. Mixie Pitlick.
This is ridiculous. Oh my god.
Oh my god, Celeste. They're not.
Where is
They
it?
can't read that.
There you go.
It's even harder than Cesarnian.
Wow.
Yeah. So I love Mr. Mixie's Pitlick. He is a Silver Age character if there ever was one. He is. I mean, you want a lore dump, Celeste. Mr. Mixie's Pitlick is an imp from the 5th dimension who is all powerful. He can literally just do anything.
But if he's overpowered, then wait, is he a good guy?
No, he's one of Superman's villain, I guess you could say.
Okay.
He's not strictly evil. He just likes to prank Superman. So he'll just like
He's an
show,
imp.
but he's an imp, like
Yeah.
a literal, like a magical imp, and
He's just living his life.
he's just yes, exactly.
He just wants to have
And so
fun.
he's just like this little guy in a silly hat, and he likes
And
to show
silly
up.
shoes.
Yeah, exactly. And he uses his magic powers to just like change reality to just to prank Superman.
Wow.
And it's always really, really irritating and annoying. And the way you get rid of him is you have to trick him into saying his name backwards.
Oh. No.
Can you say Mr. Mixie Pitlick backwards?
Kip?
I-
Kip.
I only know this from watching the Superman cartoon where Mr. Mixie Pitlick is voiced by the great Gilbert Godfrey, and his name backwards is Kiltipsy-Zim. So you have to trick him into saying Kiltipsy-Zim,
How are you
and then
gonna...
he banishes himself back to his dimension.
There's no way he...
Oh, there's ways.
How do you set him up for that?
Superman does it. You make him
What?
read it, and you make him
Oh,
read
I
something
mean, I
out loud.
guess.
One of the ways was
Wow.
they were chasing each other, like Superman can fly and Mixie Pitlick can fly too, and Superman flew through the clouds and spelled out Kiltipsy-Zim like with cloud letters, and Mr. Mixie Pitlick followed him exactly, so he also like spelled the name. That was one of the.
Okay.
See, Superman is super smart. You see, he's a genius. He's not just a big strong guy.
Wow.
But anyway, this
I thought
issue
he was all muscle.
you would think that. This issue also has Batmite, who is also an imp from the fifth dimension.
Yeah.
But he doesn't prank Batman. He's Batman's biggest fan.
Love
and
that
so
little guy.
he just shows up and is a pain in Batman's behind because he's just like the annoying super fan, you know, like
Yeah.
which is trapped for eternity.
who's
Oh,
that?
so basically the story that's set up is there's a bunch of imps that
Oh my
worship
God.
villains. So that's a Sinestro imp, and they start killing all of the imps that like the heroes.
Wow.
So, like-
Where did they all come from? They all just decided to show up at once.
They exist in the fifth dimension.
Wow.
That's just where they live. It's just populated by all powerful magical imps. Most of them just never cared about Earth, except for Mr. Mixie Pitlick. He was considered a weirdo in his reality because he like would go to Earth to play pranks.
Yeah.
And but anyway, so this is a fun issue. I'm always happy to see Mr. Mixie Pitlick and Batmite. Mark Waid is having a lot of fun with it. There's so we get to see like imp versions of all these villain
Oh my
characters.
God.
And yeah, it's looking like it's gonna take a turn, like kind of a dark turn, because that's one of the things you do with the imp characters is that they're silly, they're inherently silly, but then you like do a story with them where it's like gets serious and really
Yeah.
dark.
Everyone starts dying, guts everywhere.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, we can thank Alan Moore for setting that up in the
Nice.
'80s. But
That looks like
I-
a fun read.
yeah, I enjoy it a lot. If you like, one of the things I've said I appreciate most about this Batman Superman World's Finest comic is that Mark Waid is really leaning into the Silver Age parts of the characters and like their history. So I like that he's just embracing it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Let's see, what else do you have here for me here, Celeste?
Ooh, I Heart Skull Crusher. So
Hey.
this is my pick of the week.
Didn't we just talk about that last week?
Yeah, because they did a reprinting of #1.
All right.
So #2 came out, and we're finally getting into the actual game part of things. It's not just the
Yeah.
setup. So you'll actually see them playing, and she gets her team together, and it's a lot of fun. And we get introduced to a couple new characters this time around.
I like that.
Yeah, I'm loving everything about this. The art style, the writing, the pace of it,
hmm
the storyline.
It definitely-
Everything's a lot of fun to me.
It definitely has like a very major manga influence.
Yeah.
But it doesn't look exactly like a Japanese manga. But you can just see it in like the cartooning with the faces, like all these character faces.
hmm
I like the.
It
It's very
definitely has
expressive.
some like attributes of that.
Ooh, who's that
Yeah.
character?
So that's the new character that we just met that I forgot the name of. Dan. Cutter Dan.
Cutter Dan.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So they're a really interesting character. I think it's showed in the beginning.
hmm
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
so it has a little snippet of what they can do and tells you like they swing their sword around in a 360 and that's their best move. But yeah, I really like this card thing, how they set that up a lot.
Yeah, that's fun.
And it comes back later in this issue too, where she sees another card laying about. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's
fun.
got style. I think that's the most important thing.
Yeah, and all the characters too. It's not super confusing or overwhelming because the characters are so wildly different with their hairstyles, their attitudes, their outfits.
They all have good designs.
Yeah, so it's easy for me to follow along, which I appreciate because I'm bad at names and faces.
As established, we set that up
Yes.
earlier in the show.
Yeah. So it's great. It's a lot of fun. It's they finally got to killing people in the game.
Ooh,
so,
nice.
Yeah.
This
zombies.
This kind of makes me think of like a all ages version of one of my favorite Japanese mangas, Battle Angel Alita. Did you see that movie? There was a movie.
I've heard of it. I have not seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I love the comic, but it's like 80s violence. This definitely looks like it's going for like just a slightly younger age group, but it still retains a lot of the fun and excitement and style of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's a cool looking book.
Favorite pick.
That's your favorite book of the week?
Yes.
Well,
maybe even the month, because I look forward to the next one so much.
Yeah.
I'm like, I need it.
I think I Heart Skull Crusher is your favorite book because you didn't read this book, Dudley Datsun.
Oh, yeah, that came out this week, huh?
Yeah. So this is the variant cover that I pulled off the stands because it has a corgi on it. And you know what?
Guy.
He's just a cute little feller. And this is written by Scott Snyder. It's drawn by Jamal Igle. And I really liked this. I liked it quite a bit. It's a pretty like a straightforward setup for like a hero's journey type of story where his main character, he's a wannabe inventor, and he's like a down on his luck kind of fella. His dad has health issues. His mom is out of the picture, and he's trying to go to college, wants to invent something big that'll solve all their problems. His teacher is this lady here, and she has this pet dog that hates him. If I can find, yeah, there he is. That's her corgi, which the corgi's name is Daedalus, which, as we all know, Daedalus is the name of Icarus's father in the Greek mythology.
Yes,
you know,
we all know that.
You at least know who Icarus is, yes? The story of Icarus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Flew too close to the sun.
You got it. So Daedalus is his father.
Okay.
They were both trapped on an island, and in order to escape, Daedalus invented these wings made out of feathers and wax. Mm-hmm. And then he told Icarus, now you be careful when you're flying out there. Don't fly too high, because if you're too high, you'll be closer to the sun, and that'll cause it to melt, which is not scientifically true, but that's probably what they knew at the time. And so, yes, what does Icarus do? He gets a little reckless. He flies too close to the sun, his wings melt, and then he falls to his death and drowns in the ocean. So, that's set up, and I was like, Daedalus, that's an interesting name for a dog. And there's like some stuff happens with the plot. There's some villains that are introduced. They've got like this MacGuffin that they're looking for, and then I'm just going to spoil the very intro because it sets up the entire series. He invents these clothes that can like turn invisible and also like change into different costumes.
Wow.
And then his teacher gets killed, and then the dog starts talking to him and he says, "We run for our lives."
Oh my gosh.
And it's pretty much like a straight adventure where they're on the run from these like weird like secret society that are looking for this thing that the dog has, and it's really good. If you like adventure stories, if you like talking animals, if you like corgis.
So is the dog one of the main characters?
The dog takes on like the mentor role. So if you think about it, let me put it in terms that you can understand. In Star Wars, Luke Skywalker is like the character that goes on this hero's journey, and he's like the down in his luck, shucks howdy kind of guy. And Obi-Wan Kenobi is the older mentor. The corgi in this story, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, I get it.
Yeah, now you get it. And and this naked guy, that's Luke Skywalker.
Awesome.
Yeah, but it's really, really good. So I think people are going to like it, and I think it's only 3 issues, and it's
That's short.
yeah, each issue is
Yeah.
like double size, so
Oh, okay.
it's like a double size issue, but still only for $5. So it's still like it's very similar to the
Nice.
series Barnstormers that Scott Snyder did last
Oh,
year.
yeah.
These were originally published on Comixology, if I'm not mistaken. So they were published digitally, and now they're getting a print release. So which is why they can just put them into these like oversized single issues and charge you less or the same amount that you would for a normal issue. Yeah,
I like that.
highly recommend it. I think
Yeah.
you will like it, especially.
See, I didn't have time to read that one today.
You just didn't get to it.
Yeah.
Gonna just briefly mention 2 other books. Batman Offworld. I'm enjoying this one. Just like cool, fun Batman in space, but like at the same time, it's the hardcore serious Batman, but in space fighting aliens. So it's a good juxtaposition. Written by Jason Aaron, drawn by Doug Mankey. Great creative team. One of my I think there's a lot of good Batman and Superman books out there right now, so it's hard to say what my favorite is. But this is one of the ones I'm reading, so that should tell you that. James Bond, also really good, written by Garth Ennis. I haven't enjoyed a Garth Ennis comic this much since I don't know, his Punisher run in the mid 2000s.
Cold heart.
Your cold heart. Yeah, it's very James Bond. I really like it. Ennis, I think like a lot of people have a lot of strong opinions about Garth Ennis. Like Garth Ennis is the guy who created The Boys, the Amazon show.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a comic book first, of course.
Yeah.
And he also did Preacher, which is also a show on Amazon. So he's kind of known for being really gross and over the top and very offensive.
Yes.
And so a lot of people were like, "Oh, James Bond. I don't want to see him ruin James Bond." But I actually think he's treating the subject matter very seriously and respectfully, and so he's actually writing just like a really good James Bond comic. Like it's still pretty hardcore. There's lots of like James Bond he's like suave,
yeah.
but he's still a killer.
You know,
he's got a license to kill.
Classy.
Yeah,
that's the main part.
It is very
Bond.
classy. Like, which is, I'm just in a weird way. I don't want this to sound like backhanded compliment, but I'm just so proud of Garth Ennis for pulling this off, because it would be really easy for him to just like indulge in the stuff that he's often criticized for. But I don't think he's doing that here. I think he's just like telling a legitimately really good James Bond story. So that's the other reason I think I talk about it so much, is I'm just kind of impressed / surprised. I'm just like caught off guard. I'm just yay, good for him. All right, we have one other book.
Ooh.
I wasn't sure if I was going to talk about it, but I knew you would like it, Celeste.
Ending on a high note.
Yeah, Penthouse Comics.
Wow.
I talked about issue 1 when it came out. Now, of course, I have to be very, very careful with how I flip through this issue. But I do want to recommend it for people that like adult comics. And when I say adult, I don't mean like illicit material. I just mean stuff that's presented at a level maybe a little bit higher than your average like teenage reader. Like it has adult content in it, but it's written and presented in a very mature way. And the art is just fantastic. I think this page is clear.
Like what you were telling me earlier, it's tasteful.
It's very tasteful. Yeah. Like the art is very European, if that means anything to you, but it's so good. Just like very stylized, just so much better than the average like corporate. I know, I'm like very carefully. Yeah, like, oh yeah, see, I just really love the looks of all these stories. This has 5 different stories in it. Believe it or not, and I can't believe I'm actually complaining about this, less articles in this issue than in the first issue. And
why are you complaining about that?
Well, I do like to read articles in Penthouse. Like I
would read that for the plot.
Well, yeah, as you should. Most of the plot is all concentrated up here, I believe.
Yeah.
But
that's the plot.
Yeah. But you know what? They're pretty good comics, and I'm kind of impressed that they were able to pull this off. Penthouse Comics was a thing that happened in the 90s. They tried it for like a year, and then it all kind of fell apart in a sad way. which I'm not even going to bother getting into here.
Yeah.
But
In the 90s? I thought it was around for longer than that.
well, I mean, Penthouse Magazine has been around for longer.
Oh, okay. There we
Penthouse
go. Yeah.
Comics, like they were trying
makes
to
sense.
branch out into, the comic book industry, and so
Yeah.
somebody else is kind of picking up the reins. It's not. This is basically it's a different publisher that is just licensing the Penthouse name to do like Penthouse Comics in the spirit of the original series from the '90s. But
Okay.
yeah, it's good stuff. I think if you like that type of thing, I don't think you can go wrong. A nice
Dan would like it.
Dan would love it. I love the magazine format. Like it's oversized. It's really big. Only $10. You get 5 short stories plus a photo shoot in the back if that's something that you're into. What is our comment here? There's a. I don't think Celeste was there for the backstory you went over last time. That's correct. She wasn't. But I just I don't know. I mean, it's so convoluted and long.
What backstory?
The
For
backstory
this?
of Penthouse Comics.
Oh.
So it was started in the '90s, and the guy, the editor in charge. Long story short, the editor in charge was kind of a shady person. Who would have thought a guy working? Yeah, you should buy it, Dan. But who would have thought that a guy working in erotic magazines, publishing? But you know what? I take that back. Who would have thought a guy working in the comic book industry would turn out to be kind of a
Wow.
shady person? But yeah, it did end very sadly. Basically, there was accusations of embezzling from the company, and he ended by committing suicide, and like in a very public space. Like he went to the top of a building and like jumped off inside. It was like I think
That's
it was
like the worst ending.
It
to
was.
This, like
it wasn't outside. It was like in like a hotel that had like a giant like he could go up inside the hotel to like the 10th floor or whatever, and then jump off into the lobby and like killed himself
Oh.
like in a very very public and disgusting way. Suey slide, Suey what?
sewer slide.
Sewer. Oh,
That's what I say.
Suey slide.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that pretty much was the end of Penthouse Comics back then. So somebody's gonna. Hopefully this run ends a little bit better than the last one. All right.
Yeah, hopefully.
I think that's most
I
everything.
mean, there's not much worse it could end.
It really can't. It can literally only go up from there.
Yeah.
But yeah, so thank you guys for checking out the stream. Like we always say, there's comics out there for everybody, whether
Yeah.
it be superheroes or Penthouse or Skull Crushers.
For all different ages.
Yeah, for all ages. There's so much great stuff. So everybody, come on out to Fantasy Books and Game. Get your comics. If you can't get them here, get them somewhere. I just love comics. I love that people buy comics. I want comics to succeed. I'm glad that Celeste is reading and enjoying comics. Did you read comics before you started working here?
Nope.
Wow.
Absolutely not.
Wow.
I read like manga here and
Yeah,
there.
all right,
but-
that counts.
So it's it's dipping my toes in the water.
Yeah, but now you're like a real collector.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, that's the show. Thank you for checking it out, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Bye. See you next week.